Dance party. Woo! Hello, everybody. It is Monday, July 22nd, I think, 2024. And you are watching SkepTalk on the line. I am your host today, Shannon Q. And I am here with a little-known YouTuber by the name of Paul from Paulogia. Paul, say hi to the people.
Hello to the people.
Okay, now he's done. That's all Paul had to say to anybody, just in case anybody was wondering. Our lines are open, and we already have a couple of callers in the queue. Before we even logged in, people were calling. So if you would like to call today to talk to myself and Paul, apparently people are clamoring to do so. We will give us preferential treatment. You can call by using the link in the description on the Intron web, or you can call the old-fashioned way, and the number to call is 720-619-2288. But the link is generally the way that most people call in. And also just a reminder, towards the end of the show, we will read your super chats if you send them throughout the show. Any super chats of $5 or more, we will read at the end. So if you want to tell me how much you support me and not Paul in our ongoing coffee table war, I appreciate it. It never amounts to much, but at least I know I have support. How are you doing today, Paul? Like we haven't talked.
I know. Well, we haven't done a show. We haven't been on screen together in quite a long time.
That's true. I don't even know the last time you and I were actually like shared a platform together and talk to the people. So it's exciting. It's an exciting day. It's an exciting day for me.
I've been messing up all the other line shows instead. But I appreciate you letting me mess up yours tonight.
When they sent you the contract, the first thing I said was, "You make sure you kick the rust off of him before you let him host with me, because I'm not dealing with any of his bullshit. I don't have time for that shit." Yep. What type of call would you like to have today, Paul? Before we get into it, we've already got some, so I'm not gonna beat around the bush for much longer. But I'm curious.
Most excited, to get calls about psychology and the soul, so that I can listen to you eloquently describe all the things, or maybe an abortion call.
Some people may not know, but Paul's favorite pastime is watching me get angry. So sometimes he will play things in the house just so that he knows when I walk by, I'll get frustrated and start flying off the handle, roaming around the house, screaming about stuff. So that's what he's trying to do right now, just in case anybody was wondering. I want people to call in and talk to you about the resurrection. That's where you shine. I'm really, really hoping somebody calls in to talk to you about how you're all wrong about your theories on the resurrection. So we'll see.
That would be good.
Get on the lines, guys. Give us a call, because we've already got people waiting, and we are going to take our first call now. Are you ready, Paul?
I'm ready.
That's good, because we were going anyway. All right, we're going to talk to Matthew. Awesome. Hi, Matthew. You are on SkepTalk on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
Well, I saw that the title talked about the soul, so I wanted to get into that, and then I wanted to share a concept, if we have time, a concept of God that an atheist might understand.
Oh, well, I generally understand the concepts of God. That's not my problem. It's not a lack of understanding, but we can start with the soul, if you would like. What was your question or statement about the soul?
Well, yeah, let's start with the soul. So I just wanted to point out that the biblical concept of a soul is that we are souls. You are a soul just as much as you are a person. You have a soul just as much as you have a person. Like if I was to ask you, do you have anything on your person? I'm using a possessive wording, but it's saying your soul. It just means your person, who you are. You are a living soul. According to the Bible, God breathed into Adam and he became a living soul.
Okay, so you're just saying the soul is a synonym for the self?
Yes.
Okay, so what attributes does it have that's different than when I just say that I am a self? Like, what's special about it?
Nothing necessarily special about it, more than what's special about you yourself as a human being. Do you find yourself special?
Do you think a soul exists after you die, for example?
I believe we'll be resurrected after we die, and our soul will be there.
Like bodily resurrected?
Yes, that's a whole nother concept.
Wait.
But I just wanted to share. I just want to kind of stay in the lane of the concept of what a soul is.
So you just think a soul is a synonym for person?
That's what I'm presented to biblically.
That doesn't seem to be in line. The Bible talks a lot about the spirit, right? So
Right.
do you not believe
Which
in the
is different from the
spirit?
soul.
I'm
I
sorry,
believe in the
what?
spirit, which is different from the soul. I believe in the
Okay,
spirit, which
so
is different from the soul, but I want to focus more on the soul, just so that we get an idea of what the soul is.
okay, I thought that might be the case. That's why I brought it up. Paul, you
No.
look like you're about to say something. Go ahead. Paul, can you hear me? I said, Paul, it
Oh
looked like you were
no,
about
I
to say
wasn't.
something.
I
Go
was just enjoying. I was. Yeah.
So if you're just saying that a soul is a person, then I really don't have any argument with that, because I think that being like if you want to just use them as synonyms, and there's nothing of substance there, there's nothing that matters about it, and it's not even theological. You're just kind of like co-opting the word
Do you
person
accept
and
that as
saying
a
that it's a
theological
soul.
concept?
I don't accept that as a
Do you,
theological concept. I think that you're more so co-opting it. I think that you're
so the
just
Bible
saying the
says that
self
Adam,
or being a
God breathed.
person is being a soul, but you're not able to give anything substantive outside of personhood that qualifies it as special or different than just personhood.
So in Genesis 2:7, the Bible says that God breathed into Adam, and he became a living soul. He breathed the spirit into Adam, and Adam became a living soul. So he is to be a soul. He is a soul. He doesn't. He's not. It doesn't say that God breathed into Adam and he gained a soul. It's that he became a soul. He is a soul.
So you think a soul is a component of the body then?
A soul is all of you as a person. Adam became a living
So
soul. So it's
I'm touching my nose
all
right now.
that you are.
Is that part of my soul?
Yes.
I'm touching my hair. Is my hair part of my soul?
Yep. All of it. All of you is your soul. You are your soul. You're touching your person. You're touching your soul.
So your body and every aspect of your body. So like my toenails have the exact same
All of
attributes
it.
as the neurons in my brain.
All of it.
That seems silly to me. Like you don't see
Look
any
what it is. I mean, it could be
differentiation.
silly all live long day. It could be silly all live long day. Is what it is.
Yeah, but like,
A lot of things that are
but
silly.
so if I pull a hair
It
out of
seems
my
silly.
head, I just pulled a hair out of my head.
Yeah.
Okay, what
Yeah.
happened to the soul that was in that hair?
There's no soul in the hair. It doesn't say God breathed into Adam. Had a
But that hair,
soul
when it was
inside of
on
his.
my head, was a part, like was my soul, right? So I just pulled the hair out of my head. I'm going to scratch some skin cells off my arm right now. Where does the soul
Mm-hmm.
go that was in those skin cells?
There's no soul in the stem cell. You are a soul. There's no ethereal
But you just
thing
said
that
that
is a
my
soul.
hair was a part of my. Do you see where the concept's falling apart for me though? So my hair is my soul. My skin is my soul. My toenails are my soul. My brain is my soul. All of those are equally my soul, right?
No, it's a part of your soul. It's a part of your person. It's everything that's a part of your person. That your person is your soul. Person and soul are synonymous.
So they're equal to, like, you. There would be an equal sign with the three dashes. Like the soul and the person are indistinguishable, and there's no utility in using one word over the other. You're not inferring anything.
Correct.
You're not definitely changing anything. In every sentence, you can swap those two things. So soul is a meaningless word, essentially.
If you want to call it that, that's just what we have, right? You're looking for the word soul. You're looking for a definition of, well, do we have a soul? What's a soul? You want to know what it is. It exists. It's there. That's what it is. If you want to use person, you can totally use person. If you want to find that the word soul is meaningless, then you can say the word soul is meaningless.
Yeah, I don't think it does have any substance, because if I die, my body is still entirely intact the moment after death. Right?
Yeah, the only substance
now
the
you
soul would have
wouldn't
is,
say that I'm a person anymore, any more than you would say that I have a soul anymore. So you have to. I mean, I guess your concept of soul seems kind of useless and a bit nonsensical to me.
that's what the Bible presents. I'm only
Well, I
pointing
mean, the
what
Bible
the
says
Bible
lots of
presents.
things that I think are useless and nonsensical, so I'm not
Fair enough.
overwhelmed with surprise.
Yeah. That's fair.
So,
I'm just defining what a soul is.
I mean, that's your definition. I think a lot of theists would drastically disagree with you on that.
Probably, most likely. Yeah.
So you don't think it has anything at all to do with like consciousness or having like a sense of agency?
Your person is conscious, right?
My
Interestingly
person,
enough,
like if you're saying my
Adam
bot, a person is conscious, yes. Like if I'm using my vernacular, I would say a person is conscious, but you said like my hair and my fingernails are part of my soul, and all of the body is equally interchangeable, like a part of the whole, right? So like my fingernails are the same as my lips, are the same as my brain, are the same as my heart, are the same as my knees.
No.
Okay, well that's counter to what you said prior.
Well, then I must have misspoke, because that's not what I'm presenting. All I'm presenting is, as Paul brought out, that it equals soul. Equal sign. If you want to say that the word soul is useless, by all means, say it's useless. It's there. You want to know why it's there. That's why.
Well, if you don't see any differentiation between a fingernail and a neuron, then I'm not even sure what we're talking about anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a distinction. Paul, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Nobody can hear you. I see his
Sorry,
mouth moving.
dog time. Word of God is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even dividing soul and spirit, joint and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. What do you do with that?
That's why I want to talk about spirit.
What do I do with? What do you mean? What do I do with that? Yeah, so that's why I said.
Well, it's divisible, right? No, but it's divisible because it penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joint and marrow.
Your spirit and your soul are two different things.
Okay, so soul. So you are using the word spirit when all the other theists we hear, in the same way that all the other theists, not all the other, but many of the other theists we talk to are saying soul. So you have a concept.
No, that's the opposite. Most theists will use spirit, or use soul the way I use spirit.
All right, well, let's not quibble about voting because we would might be just running in incredibly different circles. We don't need to worry about that. So we don't need to worry about voting. Go ahead.
Your spirit is a part of your soul,
but a divisible part
from your soul. Yeah,
but a divisible part.
Correct.
Okay, so that is what we a lot of times encounter with the soul part, and that is the part that Shannon and I don't think exists and haven't seen good evidence that part exists. So we had a whole, I don't know how long we were talking, but that was apparently some kind of definition discussion, which is our least favorite thing.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's important to get it out of the way so we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to know,
so the meat of it is, the meat of it, do you believe that there is some part of us that is non-material and that survives our bodily death?
Yes. That's the spirit. That's a whole nother conversation.
Okay. So talk about that, because I think that's the part we're interested in.
Yeah.
Okay, so just before we get into that, you understand what I mean by a soul? Do you accept that is a biblical
You're using it in the same way I use the word person. So
yeah.
I mean,
it's a synonym for person.
I'm not going to use it outside of this conversation. I'm not going to use it that way, but I'm happy to do so within the confines of this
you do use it, maybe not personally, but you use it. Oh, that poor soul over there, that poor person over there. Look at that poor soul over there. It's still in our vocabulary.
Okay.
So just because something's
no matter if you want to deny it,
doesn't mean that people buy into the concept in the way that you're defining it. But that's
we haven't gotten to the spirit. I think what you guys are concerned with is the spirit.
From your perspective, like we understand how. I just want to move past this. We understand how you're using soul now. After that conversation, we would see it as a synonym for the word person. So we would, if we're really talking about like definitions, like not just in common parlance, just saying "oh bless his soul" or whatever, like just just chit chatting. Then
we know it. We
would use person if we were getting down to the nitty gritty of a discussion. So it's trivial to me, like what people do in common parlance, because we're talking about something specific. So I understand how you're using it, and we would use it as person. That's not as interesting to me as talking about spirit, which is what I tend to want to talk about when people are talking about souls in most other instances. But in this instance, what I'm interested in talking to you about, and Paul is too, is spirit. Fair jumping off point?
Fair. That's fair, but it's important to establish that when we define the soul, because your title does say soul, it cannot be confused with spirit, which is commonly done, but it should not be confused with spirit.
Well, I mean,
Does that
that's
make
just
sense?
you having an internal fight with other theists, because I don't believe that the
Well,
spirit
isn't
or the
it,
soul, as other
you,
people would use it, exists.
mhm.
I believe, if for the sake of this conversation, so we can actually progress, I will agree that that is how you use soul. I understand it. Fine. We'll say that you are the theist who is right
and
about
you
it.
use it the, and
You
you
and
use it
you
the
and
same
your
way.
ilk
You know,
are correct about it from a theological standpoint. Let's move past it
well,
so that we can talk about
hold on.
spirit.
You being a non-theist, you being a non-theist also use soul the same way I would use soul.
I don't. I don't. I just don't.
That
And you
poor
cannot
soul
tell
over
me how
there.
I
Look at
use
that. Look at
words.
that poor
That
soul.
is not a phrase I would use.
You are getting
That's fair,
very,
but we
very
do
stuck
use it.
on people using things in common parlance as part of general vernacular. And that is not the same
All
as
right.
talking very specifically and definitionally about concepts. So, no, I'm not going
We
to
can move
agree
on
with
to
it.
this.
And
We
if
can
you
move on
keep
to the
harping
spirit.
on it, we'll go in circles. So, let's move past it to what we've agreed to
We
talk about.
Yeah,
Let's talk
we
about
can
the
move on
spirit.
to this. We can move on to the spirit. I understand what's
Thank you
going
for
on.
your
We can move on to the
permission.
spirit.
Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah. So your spirit, non-material, is your behavior, right? Your character. You can't touch it. You can't see it. You can hook yourself up to neurons and maybe detect some type of thing, or you hook yourself up to a machine and test your neurons and see what happens when you express a certain character trait, I guess. But these character traits in and of themselves are not physical.
Okay. So, you think that a spirit is how you act?
It's your behavior, yes.
What about what you think?
Those are your thoughts.
And you think that you would delineate the two? You would think that your thoughts and your behavior are completely separate?
I want to say completely. I'm sure there are certain thoughts that influence your behavior.
So I just want to make sure I'm understood. So when you're talking about spirit, spirit is behavior, how you
Mm-hmm.
act.
Correct.
But how you think is separate from the spirit. It's not part of the spirit at all.
I would say it's part of the soul, because it's part of your brain, and the mind is a function of the brain. Even though the mind does exist and is immaterial, um, it is not necessarily the spirit.
So how you think is
But it's
bodily.
not separated. Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get where you are right now, and I'm having trouble.
Yeah.
So how you think is bodily. It emanates from your brain. So you agree that that's bodily, but how you act is something different than how you think.
Yeah.
That
So
right?
thoughts can be an action. Like I said, they're not completely separate, right? They're not like
So
utterly. You asked, were they two completely different things? I would say they're not.
so there's overlap between the soul and the spirit.
Yes. You definitely
Where
overlap
does
between
that
the soul and
overlap
spirit, and definitely
exist?
overlap between your thoughts and spirit.
So your thoughts bleed into your spirit and can influence your spirit?
Correct.
So I don't understand how the spirit is separate at all then. So if your thoughts lead to your behaviors, why are these two separate concepts? Why wouldn't they all just be one concept? If your thoughts lead to your behaviors, and I would argue that they do, and I think anybody reasonably would, why would there be two separate concepts? Why would there be soul and spirit and not just one thing?
Right, because the soul, and I see what you're saying, and we can even say that the thought, your thought, could even probably even be spirit because they're immaterial. But I would say that the soul is what causes you to think.
So I thought that soul was just like the entirety of your person.
Yes, that's why even as Paul read in the Bible that these things are so interconnected, but the Word of God is so sharp that it can divide the two. There's overlap and interconnection.
So this is getting muddy for me because
I understand.
now you're moving the spirit bar back into soul territory. into your concept of the soul territory. You're
Okay,
saying
so
initially you
let's put it this
started by
way.
saying the
You
soul is, or the spirit is how you act. And now you're saying, well, that's
you mentioned
obviously
thought.
influenced by thoughts. Therefore, spirit
Mhm.
has to go back into thoughts. So why isn't all of that spirit? Why isn't
All right,
everything
so
you
let's look at it this
think,
way.
all your sense of self and everything you do, like the entire concept of yourself and what you do and how you act and what you think, why isn't all of that
Mhm.
spirit?
I got you. So, you mentioned thoughts, right? And are
Mhm.
thoughts material?
I think they're an emergent property of material, yeah.
No, but are they in and of themselves material?
Thoughts, no. Thoughts aren't material.
Okay. Yet they
Any more than
have
smoke
some
is
type of
fire.
control over. Yeah, gotcha. They have, right. So when there's soul, there's spirit. Perfect. So exactly. So that's why there's a difference. You have a brain that causes you to think,
hmm
and then those thoughts are immaterial. So the immaterial part of you is the spirit.
So your brain, your spirit comes from your brain.
For us, so the comes from our soul, which is part of which our brain is part of, which is all of our person. So yes, so it comes from that. It acts at the
So
very least, it acts in that, and I would say it even comes from that. That
so
would be the genesis.
so your brain makes thoughts, and the moment your brain makes thoughts, they become spirit.
So yeah, so the thoughts are spirit. The thoughts are immaterial. So another word for
So
spirit would be immaterial. So yeah.
yeah, no, I'm getting you. So, but now I have a problem again
Mm.
because you said your soul is your entire person, but it
Yes,
seems like
including the spirit.
you're segregating the body from the thoughts, right? So you're
It
saying
doesn't. They
the
don't. They don't. They
body, which
don't. No,
includes
no.
the
They don't. They
brain,
don't.
produces
Mm.
thoughts that then become spirit the moment they're immaterial thoughts. So that means that your body's just like a shell that produces thoughts that then become a spirit.
So the thoughts are
And
spirit already.
soul
Like
just
thoughts.
means flesh.
So yeah, and soul is flesh and spirit. Soul is all your person, including your spirit.
Okay, so if I was drawing a diagram, there'd be a big circle,
Mm.
and that would be
Mm-hmm.
soul. And then a little
Inside
circle, but it's not inside of it though, because you're saying it's immaterial, which means that it
inside the circle
can't
would
be
be
inside the
spirit.
body. It needs to be separate, so it would need to be outside, right? Because it can't be in
So
the
no,
body if the body's separate.
so the body includes your soul includes your body, your spirit, all of that. Your
So your
thought, you
soul,
cannot have, like you said, you cannot have thoughts without a body.
I agree with that. Yes, you can't have
Mm.
thoughts without a brain, which
With it, right,
needs a body
right, correct,
to give it
right. You can
nutrients.
have a vegetable,
So I
but
agree with
right.
that.
So you right.
But
So
I
you
don't
have
think that
thoughts
my
which are
thoughts are my body,
no, they're not.
right? And you
They're a
don't
function of your
think
body.
that your thoughts are your soul. You think your thoughts are your spirit,
Your
right?
spirit is part of your soul.
I don't know where you're putting the two of them together.
Without a
Because you
brain,
need them to be a
right?
whole,
You can't
but you're
produce thought.
segregating them.
Without a brain, you can't produce these immaterial thoughts, behaviors, and
Agreed.
actions. Correct.
Yes.
So that's why
So you need
that's where they connect.
so you need the
Yeah.
brain to think, and the moment you think, that becomes your spirit. And your
So
spirit, but your
your
spirit,
spirit.
you wouldn't you
Go ahead.
like if somebody said, "Who are you?" You wouldn't say, I'm my arms and my
Mhm.
legs and my brain. You would be the conglomeration of all of your thoughts. Like when I think of a person, now I'm not even sure we
That
are
would be
using
your
the word soul
person.
the
There
same
you
way.
go. When you think of a person or a
Yeah,
soul,
but the person is a
exactly. There you go.
soul.
You got it. Yes.
I don't think I do. Because it seems to me that you have two separate concepts that don't need to exist separately, right? Like
Well,
you're saying
again,
the spirit isn't a person.
is the are your thoughts material?
No.
Okay.
They're not.
So there's an immaterial part of yourself, correct?
I think the immaterial part would probably more so be myself. Like when I think of myself, I don't
Right.
think of
Right.
myself as, just a physical body. I think of myself more so as, like a concept in my mind, an aggregate of all
You're
of my
both.
experiences that is bodily.
Hmm.
And also,
That's
like,
exactly.
I just
So
don't understand the point of the spirit thing. So your body produces your spirit? Like, so what if something happens to your
you're
body? Does that cause a change in spirit?
it could.
Like,
If you get sick, your
so you
spirit
can
could be
lobotomize
downcast.
somebody and directly impact their spirit? Like, what does that do
Well, yeah,
theologically?
right. So that, like,
So
let's
what's
say,
the
for
point of
example,
this spirit theologically then?
lobotomies aside. Um, let's say
That's an
that
extreme
you get
example,
sick
but
physically.
drugs, alcohol,
You get sick
concussion.
physically. Right.
Yeah.
Your behavior will change, so your spirit will change. That immaterial part of you that behaves. Because if you ask me who you were, and then someone said, well, "Are you a nice person?" You would say, "Yes, I'm a nice person," but you can't physically hand me your niceness.
I agree, but I could demonstrate it. So I'm
You can
not
demonstrate it, but you
understanding
can't.
what you
It's
mean.
not. It's
But
not
what does the
physical. Is my
spirit
point.
do? Like, why you're labeling like thoughts and in the sense of self, a spirit.
Mm.
What does that do theologically? I guess is what I'm more interested in now, because I'm pretty sure I get what you're
Right.
angling at.
Well,
What does that do
it
theologically?
communicates. It communicates with God, right? Because uh, God wants our behavior to be a certain way, correct?
So your spirit communicates with God?
Yes.
So your
God
body
wants your
produces a spirit. Your spirit is beholden to your body because changes in your body will directly impact your spirit.
correct.
And that is what connects to God.
Yes, God. If you believe theologically the concept of God, God wants you to behave a certain way, correct?
I
Theologically,
believe that the Bible does definitely say that God has specific
right?
designs on how people should behave, for sure.
How behave, how they should think. He's interested with
Yeah.
your thought life and your behavior
God
life,
loves a thought
correct?
crime. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the thought crime thing. So, so that's exactly what God is concerned with: our thought life and our behavior life. So that's
So
the
our
function of
thought life
spirit.
is
And
spirit and
this
behavior is
immaterial. Hold on.
spirit.
Let me explain. This immaterial part of ourselves, right, which you agree exists, our thoughts and our behaviors, is what God is concerned with. He wants us to have good thoughts. He wants our meditation to be good, and He wants our actions to be good. This is why when He says, if you lust after a woman that is not
But in
your
your
wife
model,
or
we have
man or
no
whatever,
control over
husband,
that, though. Like you're admitting that the
who says
body is
who?
creating thoughts and behaviors. So in your model, it's like you have a very determinist model. We would have no control because our body is
We have
producing our
control.
spirit.
We have a good amount of control. There are influences,
Not
but we still have
really. No.
control.
Like and you have a
We have
one-way
limited
trajectory.
control.
You have a one-way trajectory here, right? Because you're admitting that your body and which is your brain produces your thoughts and your behaviors, which is your spirit, and that's what directly communicates with God. And the reason for that is because God wants us to have certain types of thoughts and behaviors, but it's not a two-way street. It goes one way but not the other way, which means that you have
What do you
more
mean?
like a very sort of determinist model. So if your body and your brain are producing these thoughts and behaviors, how do you get to the point where you can control these behaviors in any way to appease
Mm-hmm.
God?
So right. So these things are interconnected, right? Remember we talked about the soul and spirit being connected, right? We have immaterial thoughts, right?
Uh-huh.
That can affect us physically. That can affect us physically, and we have physical parts about ourselves that can affect our immaterial thoughts.
So
This
you
is why
think
when
thoughts
Paul
can
read this,
affect
when
physiology, which
Paulogia,
is true.
hold on, I'm almost done. I need to make an
Uh-huh.
explanation. This is why when Paulogia read that verse in the Bible, talks about the separation of the spirit and the soul. It's like that's the word of God. It does that separation. There's a reason why that is there. It's talking about what we're kind of discussing here, that these things are separate but very codependent.
So here's things I agree with you on. I agree that your thoughts can affect your physiology. And I agree that your physiology can affect your thoughts. I believe that because I see it all as interconnected. I see it all as an emergent property of physiology. So
Okay, fair enough.
Do you not see thoughts as an emergent property of physiology? Because it sounds like you do.
No. Yeah, from what I know, I do. They do. Now there could be some concept that I'm not privy to, but right now that's kind of how I see it.
So thoughts are an emergent property of physiology. So you're on the same page as me there. But when we get to the point that I would just call them thoughts, you're calling them spirit.
Yeah, immaterial things. That's the idea of spirit. This immaterial stuff. Which can you even call it stuff because it's immaterial, but this is just the best way I can explain it with my limited language. Yeah.
So you would just label thoughts spirit. And the reason that it needs to be called spirit and not just thoughts is because that's what connects to God, because God is very concerned with how we act and what we think.
To a certain extent, mostly because this is the language that we're given, right? We're given the word soul, we're given the word spirit. You're asking about the word soul, you're asking about the word spirit because we're given these words.
I just don't see how you're not a determinist, though. Like, it seems like you agree with my model, but you don't see it as deterministic.
I don't know what that means, right? I could be a determinist.
So you think physiology produces thoughts? You would label them spirit, but you think physiology produces thoughts.
As far as human beings are concerned, as far as we are concerned as human beings, what we know now, what you and I know now in this fleshly body, we know that our brains produce something immaterial that can affect us materially, and vice versa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we agree on that. I just don't understand why you need to call it spirit, and I don't understand how you don't see that you're kind of a determinist.
Well, I call it spirit because that's what the Bible says. Now, the Bible said behavior, which it does at certain points, talk about behavior. It even says conversation, right? So we can even use the word conversation, but you would have no idea what I'm talking about. You'd be like, this guy's an idiot. What are you talking about? Means conversation, right?
Oh, well, I'll throw you to Paul. If you want to talk about Bible stuff, that's Paul's wheelhouse, especially if it's New Testament stuff.
So
no, Paul, tag.
The Bible tells women that they need to have chaste conversation, right? So does it mean that you're talking?
Oh, the Bible can lick my nuts. Do what I want.
So Matthew,
I don't know about all that. I'm not sure what that
Matthew
from, okay.
Matthew, would you agree that thoughts are temporal? Thoughts have a beginning and an end.
Temporal. Yeah,
and that behavior is temporal. Behavior has a beginning and end, right?
Well,
my dog has temporarily stopped barking.
Pardon?
I'm sorry?
Say that again. Ask the question again. Or say that quote again.
Thoughts and behaviors have beginnings and ends, right? They're temporal.
Correct.
They exist in time. They're finite.
As far as we are concerned with our thoughts.
Like, I don't keep having, like, a thought I had a year ago, I'm not still having.
Correct.
But I assume you want to say that a spirit is forever.
It really does depend on the spirit, I would say. For example, and this kind of actually bleeds into my concept of God, so maybe we can kind of shift over there. If it doesn't work, we can come back. But the concept of God is truth, right? Truth is not material. Truth does exist. It's an immaterial thing that exists, and I would say it was neither created nor destroyed.
Truth is a description. Truth is a description of how something.
What I mean by truth,
reality.
Right. What I mean by truth is the concept of reality. Like, reality in and of itself exists.
Okay, reality exists. That's what you want me to agree to?
So you would agree that reality exists, or even the concept of truth. I'll put it this way: the concept of truth exists.
Well, lots of concepts exist. The concepts of unicorns exist. So
that's fair.
Concept of Superman exists.
But the concept of truth is right. The concept of truth, we know what it is. It's practical. Remember, you're coming from a skeptic point of view.
Not enough people know what it is, but carry on.
Yeah, I understand there's going to be a back and forth here, but so the concept of truth, for example, you would not want to be lied to, right?
Depends.
If I was saying, hey guys, I was just lying this whole entire time, I was just joking, I don't believe any of this stuff, it would be a little bit offensive.
In a circumstance under which I'm expecting you to tell the truth, that's correct.
Right. And so, and that being the case, we do hold truth to a high regard. This concept of truth, I know you wouldn't want to use these words from a skeptic point of view, but we would worship it. We would say this is the highest thing. Anyone that goes against this or violates this concept,
not
is
really. We
Worship?
actually value survival over truth. We've evolved that way.
So yeah. So in a sense, for example, Nazis come into the kick down the door, right? You would want to say, you want to lie. And say, oh no one's here, right? You want to say another way.
No, but that's not even. You don't even need to. You don't even get to that. For example, our bodies have evolved to do all kinds of things that aren't really true. For example, and Shannon can absolutely correct me on this, but like for example, the color purple is really just a lack of green. There isn't really a true color purple out there. Like there's our eyes have evolved to create this thing because when there's a void in green, we need to fill it in with something. And so, but we value it because it helps us survive okay. And that's there's thousands of other examples. We've just, any species is going to evolve to value survival ahead of other things, unfortunately. But so we don't actually, truth is valuable to us to the extent to which it helps us survive.
Right. So to avoid getting into the weeds, and I hear what you're saying, and I'm listening to that, I'm thinking about that. But the concept of truth is a immaterial concept. Would you agree?
Well, all concepts that's literally the definition of a concept. So
yeah,
sure.
Perfect. Fine. Just making sure we're on the same page in that. All right. So where does this concept come from? Did we make it up, or was it always in existence?
We have labeled certain things. So the label we created to describe a thing that existed
label made up
being
you
humans.
are. Yeah.
Just like, we didn't invent the concept of rocks, but we gave rocks a label.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. So this thing that was not unlabeled before we labeled it, did it always exist?
Was there always a reality? I think there was always a reality, if that's what you're asking.
Correct. Right. So that is something, that is an immaterial thing that was not, you used the word.
Sorry. No. I'm okay. Were you asking me if the concept of reality existed before? Because it didn't. The concept of reality didn't exist until someone was around to conceive it.
Really? So before there was anyone to conceive it, it didn't exist.
Reality.
The concept
existed.
of reality existed, concept. But not the concept of reality.
You need a people.
Okay, so reality.
You need to understand a concept.
Right. Reality in and of itself. I would even say, just like rocks and labels and all that stuff, I would say that even this thing that something being true, this will be the concept. Something being true existed before we were ever looking around and being around to label it as true and as being true. Would you agree with that?
I don't know if I would agree with that, because I think truth is a concept of that we evaluate. Like, you need a person to evaluate.
Truth, yeah. As far as I'm concerned, truth only applies to a proposition. That's actually my definition of truth: the extent to which a proposition conforms to reality. So you actually have to have a proposition.
Being able to communicate. Yeah.
Right. So, but this reality that remember, we're labeling, and we can label truth. We can label this concept anything we want. We can label it truth. We can label it verdad. We can label it whatever.
What are you angling at?
Okay. Sorry, Shannon.
I'm getting itchy. I'm trying to figure out what you're angling at here. I'm trying to figure out what you're angling at here.
I think Paulogia was going to say something fair. What was that, Paulogia?
I just said I'm not willing to label reality and truth as the same thing. That's all I was willing to say.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. But when I talk about reality, I'm talking about truth because it's like that is truth.
Wait,
but that's fair. That you can.
Are you saying
label
reality is the same as truth? Like truth and reality?
I would say the concept
Same
of
thing.
something being true. Like,
So you don't think reality
pardon?
predated truth? Like you see them as
Do I
the
think
exact same
reality-
concept?
It depends on how I label it. No, you can say that reality.
No. It doesn't depend on how you
predates
label it.
truth.
Like these terms have like commonly understood meanings. So reality is all of everything, right? All of everything that exists is reality. Truth is how
Please, go ahead.
you need reality. Reality is a precursor to truth. Truth can't exist without reality because truth is how a proposition comports to reality. So if you're defining them as the same thing, you're creating a circle.
Was the existence
Because
of
reality is
true
truth, and truth is what comports to reality, and then circle.
Was
Reality
the
needs
existence
to
of
exist
reality
for the concept of truth to be embedded within it. They're not the same thing.
was reality a true thing before the concept of truth existed?
You are now making a proposition that reality exists, and I would say
I'm only
that is
asking
true.
a question.
And I'm answering your question.
That way we can.
You just made that proposition is what I would say is true. So, did you make that proposition at the beginning of the known universe and time and reality? No, you made it now. That proposition doesn't exist in the ether.
What I'm asking.
Propositions only exist
So
when
we're defining things differently because you are saying reality and truth are synonymous. So your question is, did reality exist when reality existed? Is what you're saying because of the transitive property, the way you're defining it. You're asking, did reality exist when reality existed? And so we're saying that's nonsense. And
yeah, I don't mind using reality in lieu of truth. I don't mind scrapping truth for the sake of the conversation.
So you understand your question. Your question is, did reality exist when reality existed? You're acknowledging that, right?
No. What I'm saying is that was the idea of reality true, or was it true that reality was a thing?
Well, you're asking about just to be clear, you're asking about a proposition now, right?
Yeah.
I'm using that proposition, correct.
So yes, the proposition was, in the past, did reality exist? That proposition is true, but no one could have made that proposition until someone was around to make the proposition.
That is true.
My point.
Yes, very true. Agree with us. But just because
it's a tautology, you've made a tautology, and we're now just wondering if we've just played language games for this whole time because you're using these words in ways that are they haven't just you're using these words like soul.
Yeah.
Like are you telling me that your concept of God is just God is reality?
To a certain extent, yes.
Or did God create reality?
No, God is reality. I will say that. Reality always existed.
So God is a brute fact in your world, and reality is a brute fact in your world.
Correct.
They're both brute facts.
Yes.
Okay, so then why are we even? Then why do we need? Then God is superfluous. Like the concept of God is clearly not needed because we have a concept of reality.
Well, this is why when I talked about reality we interact with reality, right? Just going back to the spirit and the soul that Shannon asked earlier, right? We interact with reality. For example, for social.
No, I agree. We interact with reality. Get to the distinction between God and reality part, or we need to probably move on. So where's the distinction between God and reality?
There's no distinction. There's no distinction.
Okay, then
move on.
We need it. then what in the world do we need God concept for? What explanatory power? What does it give us?
Because we need to, as human beings, going back to spirit and soul and how it relates to theology, we need to live in a world in which we are, for the most part, as especially in a social aspect, we need to respect reality.
Okay, so, but you just said we're respecting reality. So you're affirming for me that the word God and the concept of God is superfluous in this whole discussion. It's redundant.
Well, do you agree that we need to respect reality and live right by it?
We don't need to respect reality. We're a
We don't
component
need to
of
respect reality, but we unfortunately we need to operate within the confines of what reality gives us.
We have to submit to
I can
reality.
have absolutely no respect for reality whatsoever. I can be like, damn you, reality, and it affects my life not at all. I can walk around going, reality is stupid all day, and it does absolutely nothing to affect my life.
When I say respect, I mean in action, not like respect with emotions and stuff. I mean like not jumping off a bridge because you will fall because of gravity. That's what I mean by respect.
That has nothing to do with reality. Reality is everything. It benefits our survival to understand how things operate in reality
and behave in a way that
knowing how gravity works. We don't need God for that, and which is why we would
under no obligation to behave in a way. We're under no obligation to behave in a way that 100% is beneficial to ourselves.
Paulogia. Yeah, we're in no. We don't have any obligation to respect reality, but if we don't, there may be consequences.
It has nothing to do with respect, though. You're using terms and synonyms that aren't synonyms. We need to understand how things operate within reality to survive.
Remember
that is not the same as having respect for it, which I think is where your tier is going. I think you're saying we need the concept of God because we need to have respect for reality, which maybe is something like reverence to you, which means that we need to, somehow worship it. And that doesn't even get back to the point of the spirit where like now you're basically saying back to what you initially said, that reality has ways it wants us to think and act. Reality doesn't have ways it wants me to think and act. Reality cares not about me, period, whatsoever.
Do you know that?
Reality cares not about me. You can't make God a synonym for reality to say so that you can place your belief system as having respect for just everything that exists and then do a complete code switch and go into saying, well, not only is reality everything that exists, it has feelings and designs for me in particular, and it wants me to act and think a certain way. Because that's smuggling your concept of God into a place where it absolutely doesn't belong and you have no justification to put it. And we just spent almost an hour getting to this point.
Remember, you're an atheist, correct?
I do remember. Yes, thank you. I remember that.
Okay, so you're an atheist. So obviously you're not going to understand an idea of what you just presented of God caring about reality, caring about what you... I'm a Christian. I believe that's neither here nor there.
I understand the concept of God. I'm not allowing you to use him as a synonym for reality so that you can smuggle him into being everything. You can't, unless you're saying reality, like say it with me. Reality doesn't want me to, reality wants me to. That sounds like nonsense because it is, because reality isn't an entity with feelings. It is everything.
You know this for a fact.
You're adding a level to it. You're adding on to it.
I asked
and saying reality is God. God is reality. They are the same thing, except I'm going to give it properties reality does not have that I cannot prove and say it has thoughts, feelings, and desires that are specifically pertaining to me and you. I'm not doing that. You are.
Reality does not have this. Do you know that for a fact?
I am making a fact claim that reality does not have feelings, thoughts, and desires. Yes.
Yes.
I'll die on that hill. But I know for a fact that reality does not have feelings, thoughts, and desires. Yeah.
And how do you know this?
I'm confident.
How
Because
do
that's
you
not
know
what the
this?
word reality means. It's not an entity
'Cause
that's
not
imbued
what
with
the
those
word
properties.
reality means.
You can't just redefine words and then tell me I don't understand them. That's bonkers.
You're all right. You're all right. I'm just trying to figure out.
I am fine. I'm not sure about you right
agreed,
now, but I'm good.
You agreed that reality is everything, right? That reality is matter and energy.
Yes, but everything is not reality, if that makes sense.
So, wait. But reality is everything.
Mhm.
So are you trying to say that because some portions of reality care, that all of reality cares? Because you said that they're synonymous.
No. Like, for example, let's say I have a remote control in my hand, right? The remote control is part of reality. You cannot have a remote control without reality. The remote control doesn't care whether I do whatever or not.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Nor do the atoms in the remote control. Yeah. So,
but in your
so
mind,
well, I don't know. I haven't spoken to the atoms, so I don't know. Okay, maybe the controller does think that, right? But I'm not necessarily here to make such a claim. All I'm saying.
But you said God and reality are synonymous.
Mm-hmm.
When we
means your remote
when we are talking
really
about reality, we are talking about matter and energy. That's what we are talking about when we talk about reality.
Okay, so anything outside of matter and energy is not reality?
That has never been demonstrated to
exist,
even within a mile of my satisfaction, that anything beyond matter and energy exists.
All right, so a thought. Going back to the thought, is that matter and energy?
They are they're a property of matter and energy. Yes,
they're produced by matter and energy, but are the thought in and of itself matter and energy?
Abstractions are not supernatural.
I don't know.
Abstractions are they are emergent. They are emergent properties. Are you telling me that God is an emergent property of the universe?
No, hold on.
Or that God is like
the question. You said something about matter and energy. I'm asking the question: is matter and energy, our thoughts, matter and energy?
Thoughts are absolutely produced by matter and energy. That's why we count matter and energy as reality and thoughts not as reality.
So thoughts are not in reality? Thoughts are not a part of reality?
Thoughts are not part of reality if you define it as matter and energy, no.
Well, that's why I'm not defining. That's why you're defining it as matter and energy, but I'm not. So I'm wondering.
But this is why I'm telling you that when you were trying to tell an atheist that God and reality are synonymous, you are smuggling in a whole bunch of stuff that we don't agree to, and that's why you're failing at this.
Well, don't be afraid of me smuggling anything. Let's just stick with the questions I asked you. You said matter and energy are part of reality, right? And then I asked you, were thoughts matter and energy? And then I asked you, are thoughts part of reality?
And I said no.
Okay, so you think that thoughts are not part of reality? Behavior and thoughts, these immaterial things, are not within the confines of reality.
Behaviors are descriptions of actions, and thoughts are again they're abstractions of neurochemical processes.
Sure, but these things in and of themselves, you're saying, are not part of reality.
Is the concept of Superman part of reality?
No. Would you be able to answer my question?
I answered it, and you didn't like my answer. I said no.
So if they're not a part of reality, what are they? How do you come up with that concept?
They are abstractions,
which is not part of what reality is.
We store the abstractions, we use the abstractions, but abstractions are not matter and energy. No.
I'm asking if they're matter and energy. I'm asking are they part of reality.
That's what I'm saying.
He's saying no. He's saying that thoughts are not.
No. Okay, that's an interesting
part of his definition of reality.
I have to think about that. I don't want to waste too much of your time. I got to do something in 5 minutes anyway. So I appreciate the talk.
Yeah. Okay. We've been talking to you for almost an hour.
Yeah.
Give us a call back sometime,
I
Matthew.
know.
Have a lovely rest
Thank
of
you.
your day,
Yes.
evening, whatever it is where you are.
You guys do the same.
Have a good day.
Yes. Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Well, that went all over the place.
Mhm.
That was fascinating. You and I have to talk after this about thoughts as abstractions in reality, because I need to unpack that. All right. I have an announcement. Everybody. I have several announcements. You can go on our Patreon and support us on Patreon, because that's cool. And we also have other shows that you can watch that are almost as good as this one. We have actually, I love the Transatlantic Call-In show is probably my favorite show. That's my favorite. On Tuesday, we have Chewed Gum with Whitney Miller and Alyssa Ljub. And on Wednesday at 6 p.m., and these are Central Time, sorry, Chewed Gum's also at 6 p.m., we have The Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty. On Thursday at 2 p.m., we have the Transatlantic Call-In show with Arden and Luxander. Then on Sunday at 2 p.m., we have the Sunday show with Matt Dillahunty and Seth Andrews. That's an exciting combo. I haven't seen Seth in a bit.
Ooh.
And then at 7 p.m. After Dark with Jimmy Snow and Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels. And next week on Monday at 6 p.m. on SkepTalk, we have Erika from Gut Sick Gibbon, who is the best host objectively. Yeah, so do all that stuff. And that was a lot to process. Are you ready to take another call? I am.
Let's shake that off. Well, I mean, that was fine, but yeah, let's. I'm ready to shift some gears to non-definitional
sometimes I like
arguments.
taking longer. I know other people might be frustrated by it because they're like, "Oh, this call took so long." But sometimes I think you need to take the time to really understand what somebody is trying to say. And he wasn't combative. Yeah. So if you don't like it, I'm sorry. But
No, I
find it
got
interesting.
Canadian angry at the end, but that's all right.
I'm selfish. You did. Yeah, I could tell. I could see your little lip turning up. All right. We are going to talk to who's next in the queue? Oh my gosh. Gio? Please tell me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. If I am, I'm so sorry. This is Gio. Hi, you're on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
I can. Did I pronounce your name okay?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, it's such an honor to talk to both of you.
Oh, well, it's lovely to talk to you too, Gio. What would you like to discuss?
Yeah. So I grew up very religious. I want to not go on a tangent, but I was basically a missionary's kid, moving around a lot, you know. I got used to losing people. I got used to just losing friends and making new friends all the time. And I just constantly felt like at any point my life could just end, because sometimes I would get home and then my parents would be like, "Oh, hey, you know, we've just got to move again." I kind of like to describe it as like a military's kid, but my war was with, you know, on the spiritual side. So that's how I compare it, just like how military families are moving on a lot, but it just would happen all of a sudden. And so I don't know how to describe it, but like I just always feel like things can end, and I feel like there's no point creating something for myself in a certain way. Like it's just hard to feel like I'm stable. Full disclosure, I am an alcoholic and I'm trying to work on that, but so that definitely is, I feel like, something that I should tell you, because that's probably the number one thing I should do is fix that. But I do feel like there's a root problem that comes from being stuck in religion and imagining losing people all the time, and not feeling like I have a basis for myself to be myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand. Are you somewhere where you feel as though you're more stabilized now? Like, have you set down roots somewhere and created a community for yourself? Okay.
I
So
tried
you're
to do that on my own.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm with my mom right now.
Okay. And is that a comfortable environment to be in?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, for sure.
Okay, good. That's the most important thing, is that you're in a safe and comfortable environment. I have to give you, first off, a disclaimer that I am in no way a therapist, nor have I ever been a therapist, nor did I ever have the inclination to attempt to become a therapist. So I am not qualified to give you any therapeutic advice. if you are dealing with something like alcoholism, then I would strongly recommend, and it sounds like that's potentially tied to some religious trauma. I would
Yeah.
suggest going to Recovering from Religion. Have you tried them yet? Some of their that's the best resource for anybody who is coming through religious trauma. You will find people there who are qualified to help assist, and communities that have similar stories to kind of commiserate with, which is a great like first step to see kind of like what worked for them, um, how they've helped each
Right.
other, and how they've created bonds and community.
Mm. Okay. No, for sure. I guess part of me is just afraid. I feel like um, having a community seems like such a foreign thing in my mind.
Mhm.
Like community that I'm fit in, or a community that I'm a part of, or like people that actually know what I'm going through, or like I grew up speaking 3 languages because we moved around a lot, so I feel like I can get into a community, but I've never felt like I was a part of a community, even as much as I was. And so
You
I
can
think
go
that thought even scares me.
you can go at whatever pace works for you. You shouldn't do anything that makes you feel like viscerally uncomfortable. But I think taking this step to reach out, that doesn't mean that you immediately have to join a community. That is something that is available to you. But I think the first step would be to see if you can maybe get hooked up with like a therapist or a counselor who is familiar with the type of issues that you're going through, who can start, maybe laying out a plan for you of what the next steps might be and what works best for you. I think I really
Yeah, for
can't
sure.
strongly recommend reaching out to them enough. And I'm sorry that you've had that experience, and I'm glad to hear that you've recognized that it's something that you need to start working through. That's step one. A lot of people don't even get to that step, recognizing that there is something that they need to work through. They don't get past the phase of being, either angry or depressed or in denial, and get to the point that they're
Right.
willing to step up and help themselves. So give yourself kudos for doing that much.
Oh no, and
Seriously.
I've been there. Trust me. That's why I got kicked out of certain places, because I've been there. And so I guess I know what I need to do. I think I just needed to call in and the mighty Shannon tell me just a little bit with
Oh,
kindness and gentleness, and just saying that it's okay. And you know, I rarely have the option to call you guys. It's just my day off. But so thank you so much. I don't want to take more of your time. I just
Well,
really appreciate you.
I just want to affirm for a minute that I have known a lot of people when I was a theist and now who had various versions of what you've gone through. I've known a bunch of MKs who left,
Mm,
were not in North America for their whole you know growing up years, and then at 18 they throw them off to a Bible college or something where I was, and there were definitely MKs there who you know they're out of their culture. They feel like they belong nowhere. Like they're just I've seen that over and over.
yeah.
And that same thing you're expressing even with homeschool people, and also again with MKs, that constant moving. I just want to affirm that you're not in any way like strange, or that this is you're reacting in a way that is unreasonable or whatever, because sadly this is something that happens to a lot of people. So I just wanted to affirm that you're not alone in that, and that you're not facing something in an abnormal way. I guess I just wanted to affirm that.
Yeah, yeah, I really do appreciate that, because sometimes people say, oh, you're depressed, just find a therapist, or oh, well, just find the right medication that works for you, and that's going to take time. It's not. And with my specific like triad of religious trauma, as far as like being an MK and then being a PK, and then being between all these cultures and my own, and then being a part of the LGBTQ community, and I just am. It's it's just hard. Life is hard. Like, what can you say? But I have to do
sounds like you
something about
were
it. I can't just expect.
yeah,
Mm.
it sounds like you were kind of robbed of the opportunity to like fully be instantiated as yourself. And now you're not
I
sure how to start doing that, because the time when most of us get to do that would wasn't like not taken away from you, but there was impediments that prevented you from being able to go through those steps. And that's, I know that this is probably going to be hollow solace, but that's actually, like, when you think of it, exciting, because it means, you know, for the first time, you get to go on a journey to becoming yourself. That's exciting.
Right.
Finding out who you are, like, oh man, I didn't even come close to knowing who I was until I deconverted and got rid of some traumatic people in my
Right.
life, and, you know, segregated myself, got rid of dependencies, and segregated myself from who I thought that I had to be, and started becoming who I wanted to and needed to be for myself. And wow, that the transition period's rough. It sure does suck, but man, on the other side of it, do you ever find yourself in a state of elation to just, you know, finally be clear-headed about, oh, there I am. There I am. There was so many people, you know, I've likened it before to attempting to swim holding rocks and then one day realizing I could let them go. And I was like, oh, I don't have to hold these rocks while I'm swimming. I can let them go. That's what it felt like
You
to me.
deserve to let them go.
Sorry, I didn't hear the
Sometimes
question.
what I struggle with is, do I deserve to let them go?
Yes.
I think that's one
absolutely
of the
do.
biggest questions is in my head that I struggle with, even though I've deconverted and even though I've been watching shows for years and years. I just still have just like, why do I deserve to, you know myself and be myself? And I think that's
Do you think
one of the biggest hurdles.
Paul wasn't
And we're not
a
going to solve that in
missionary,
this
but he
conversation.
spent, yeah, but I mean, like, you should give yourself the grace that you would give others. Because Paul
Yeah.
spent years and years and years and years of his life teaching children how to memorize Bible verses. Does he deserve to be the best version of himself? Of course he does. Like, we were raised in indoctrinated environments, and part
Right.
of it, like, we of course do have our own agency, but we're not entirely to blame for the culture that we were brought up in and the things that we are told and believe. Give yourself permission to go be free. Go get to know yourself. Do yourself a favor. Love yourself. Period. That's just that's a whole sentence. Love yourself. You deserve it.
It is. And it is a verb. So I'm going to go do that right now.
Yeah.
And
for
for
me.
anybody who kind of relates with yeah, I will. Anybody who kind of relates to everything I've been saying, one thing that's really helped me is, especially moving so much, one day I finally asked myself what feels like home to me. And home to me feels like sitting in front of my piano and just playing my songs and playing other people's songs and just expressing myself and feeling like my voice is out there in the world and I'm actually just being. And I have that cathartic state of, just not being myself and just being transported in the moment. So I finally realized that piano felt like home, not, a certain house or certain people or whatever. So find your home and then just go be there when you are feeling upset. So that's what I'm going to go do now.
Good advice, Gio. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening at home and have a good rest of your day and enjoy your journey. Thanks,
Thank
Gio.
you, Paul.
Have a good
Shannon.
day.
Have an awesome day.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye. All right. Oh, bless his heart. I trust he will be okay. Good first steps, and I hope. I'd say I pray, but I won't. All right. I have a call that I really want you to take. I'm mostly just going to sit and listen. We're going to talk to Michael. Hi, Michael.
Hello.
You are on SkepTalk on the line. What would you like to talk about today with Paul?
Well, yeah, I was going to say this is for Paul. Thanks for taking my call. I am been doing a lot of research on the historical Peter, not the character from the Bible, but what we know about him, as a person. And Paul seems like he would know a lot about that. So I'm sort of wondering, where do we draw the line between fact and the fiction, and where does this mythology of him as like a church father, the stuff that he was saying, what do we know about what's true about that, and what kind of got inflated over time? I didn't know if Paul could maybe shed some light on that for me.
So
direct
sadly,
me in the right direction.
my dog is going bananas, and so I missed the noun. I don't know who we're talking about.
Oh, Peter.
Peter. Perfect. I've
Yeah.
literally been working on Peter this week, so perfect.
Excellent.
Sorry. So the question is, what do we think we know about Peter?
Yeah, historically, like, I know what the Bible says about him, but what
Right.
what do we know about him as a human?
So do you accept that the letters of Paul are likely written by Paul? The seven undisputed ones?
I understand that many scholars believe that, and I know that you believe that, so I will say I believe that because you know more than I do.
Sorry,
I'm gonna go deal with the dog.
cup.
One sec. My kid just came home and our dog is having a time. Paul, you keep talking. You might see me in the background in a sec.
Okay, so if you believe the letters of Paul, which I tend to, and this is, your mileage may vary, that Paul definitely mentions Peter several times in 1 Corinthians and also several times in Galatians. In fact, in Galatians, he says that he met Peter. And so that's a pretty bold claim. If you think that there was a historical Paul, and it's weird to maybe not think there was a historical Paul, or at least someone who wrote those books. So he could have been making that up entirely, but his ministry would have been better if Peter hadn't existed. So I feel like that's, at least we can identify that at some point those people met each other. Your mileage may vary, but I think that that's relatively reliable. If we move from there, outside the Bible, we have First Clement. And First Clement was a church father who wrote around 95-ish AD. And he was definitely, if you can trust Catholic history at all, there was a Pope, First Clement. And First Clement claimed to have had firsthand knowledge that Peter existed. Now, all that he said was that Peter met an untimely end, or something to that effect. That's not the exact words. We don't know that it was martyrdom. We don't know anything more about it, but we have Clement acknowledging him. And then, we have one more source. Before I get to that, does that ring true to you? Do you care about either of those sources at all?
I think so. My sort of angle of entry into this, if you will, is historical archaeological research of under St. Peter's Basilica. The necropolis, and what they think was Peter's tomb. And I've read, I think, everything that exists in the English language on that. And very, very rare in archaeology that there's something that's that old with basically a unbroken chain of custody. That site was protected almost immediately and remained protected the entire time.
It wasn't, right? Because if Peter died indeed in 64 AD-ish, those venerated sites didn't really start happening until 3rd century. So they can say that there was an unbroken chain, but I tend to be incredibly skeptical because we don't even have great stories about exactly how Peter died, except other than the general conceit that it was Nero.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say that that's Peter's remains, but I think there's good evidence that the people in the 2nd century absolutely did believe that Peter was buried there, and they treated it as such.
Yes, but what does that tell us, really? It tells us what they believed, right?
Yeah, and I think that's sort of where I'm, trying to figure out where the line is, if you'll pardon the pun. I mean, where was the real historical Peter going around saying, "Hey, Jesus is my homeboy, and you should hear about him," or is that something that was projected on him later? This whole, church father thing, I'm trying to sort of demystify some of that, I guess.
Okay. I'm just going to rattle off a couple of. So, my concern is more. My first concern is, can we actually verify that there was a Peter who started Christianity? So the ones I would add to my list there, Tertullian is our major secular source, who specifies that Peter was killed under Nero. That's mainly the source that we have for that. And then we have Irenaeus and Eusebius are both the other church fathers who kind of like their writings tend to be, for me, at least lend to the historicity that Peter was a person. But none of them for me, and that's part of my, can tell us what Peter, no one gives us a quote, like Peter said, blah, 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 right? Like there's none of them say anything. The first we get of that is the Gospels. For anyone even attempts to put a phrase into Peter's mouth. So so I'm kind of at the point in my research where I'm kind of like, well, Peter was definitely a guy and was definitely really involved with Christianity starting, but we just cannot with any confidence say anything that he did or said based on my research. Does that ring with what you have found?
Yeah, it really does. And, I guess, I mean, there may be no way to know any of this, but, a lot of stuff is attributed to him, but I'm wondering, how much of that was projected on him by later generations and how much was him claiming things at the time, the whole story about him leaving and then seeing the vision and coming back and getting crucified, like, all of that stuff.
Yeah, and I would agree that it's impossible to know, but the evidence sure seems like that all those reports are much later and definitely theologically driven as opposed to historically driven. Right. So, like Mark, I don't care if you think the genre of Mark is biography-ish. The reason that book exists, it tells us that it wants you to believe and be saved, right? Like it's a tract. It's not intended to be dispassionate. Oh, well, I'm just going to record all the things that Jesus had for lunch because for posterity that might be cool. It's definitely like a theological treatise, right? So I'm with you. And as Bert Ehrman says, there was a veritable cottage industry, right, of people writing things in Peter's name. There was the Apocalypse of Peter, the Gospel of Peter, the Acts of Peter. There were First and Second Peter, which were definitely not written by Peter because they know things. They know a lot of things about what happened in the church after Peter died, right? So it's just, he didn't write them. So, but he was definitely. I feel like we have enough data points to say he was a central figure because that's who everyone wanted to hitch their wagon to. When there was disputes about Mark, right, the Gospel of Mark, Papias decided, well, I'm hitching that to. Okay, it wasn't Peter because he was dead when it was written, but it'll be Mark who supposedly was a friend of Peter's, right? So he was a linchpin. As much as we want to say that Paul. A lot of people want to say that Paul started Christianity. If Peter hadn't existed before that, if there hadn't been someone making that central hub before that, Paul couldn't convert to it. So, that's is why, for me and my hypothesis, those are the 1-2 punch. I was actually just reading First Clement again yesterday, the letter of First Clement, and in that, I actually tweeted about it. The only two apostles he lists are Peter and Paul, right? Like he says, oh, there's lots of heroes of our faith, but the only ones those are the two that the early church was definitely anchoring themselves to. And again, with all like where were all the martyrs' bones, and does the Catholic Church have them? Those are 4th century, 5th century, way later. So I don't know why anyone puts any stock in that. Anyway, I feel like I've been rambling and not really responding to questions. So did you have more question? Or did you just want me to ramble about a topic that I like?
No, that's helpful because it's, I was raised Catholic and I deconverted pretty early in my teens, and I'm in my late 30s now. So I'm more interested in the, like I said, the archaeological aspect and the, what we do know historically. So I'm currently trying to figure out how much of this was just tradition or mythology or whatever, and how much of this is actually based on facts. So that's sort of what I'm navigating right now.
Yeah,
so
there's
I definitely
as far as I can tell, there's not as far as my research tells me, there's not a lick of archaeology. Like just no. Archaeology is very rare for a person who didn't have coins or steles minted for them. Like we don't even have archaeology for Jesus, really, right? So
Sure.
I do recommend. So Bart Ehrman wrote a book, one of his first books, and very few people have read it. It's called Peter, Paul, and Mary, and it's a third of each book. The third of the book is about just what evidence do we have for the existence of each of those people. I think you can get an ebook version. So it's a good one that kind of isn't caught up in the nostalgia of the tradition about it. I actually think he grants a little bit more than I would, but it definitely is going through the evidence in a way that is dispassionate from in tradition or feelings or needing it to be true. So yeah, as far as this, there's not that many secular books about Peter. That's probably the only one I know of.
Well, that's very helpful. Definitely appreciate your time. Thank you.
No worries.
Cool. I'm
All
glad
right.
I could be here.
Have a great night,
Get
everyone.
the dog out of
Yes.
the way.
Thank you for wrangling the dog.
But here she is. She's
I
literally
know
on
my
my
role in
face.
this
There he is. All right.
Thank you, Michael. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, I knew exactly what my role was going to be there. Get the dog out of the way. I'm excited. All right. Do you have one more call on you? One more,
Sure
and then
do.
we'll read super chats. I think people sent super chats. I hope so.
If not, we'll be done
It's
sooner.
like the weirdest thing because I feel like asking for super chats is like, like it makes me feel weird. But then if people don't send them, then I compare myself to the other people and I'm like, oh man, people don't like me as much. But that's I have a weird brain that does weird stuff. We don't need to talk about it anymore. We're gonna take one last call. We're gonna talk to Matthew. And hi,
Hello.
Matthew. You are
Hi,
on the
how are
line.
y'all
What would you
doing?
like to talk about? I'm spectacular. Excited to talk to you.
probably
What would
don't-
you like to talk about today?
Oh, it's very rainy out here, so I thought I'd give you guys
Uh-oh.
a call. It's beautiful outside, so
We're glad you chose to hang with us.
You probably don't remember me, Paul. I called about 2 weeks ago about the Talmud Jesus. Remember that? I told you about that.
Oh yes, I do. Yes.
Yeah, I had another question for you guys. I was watching one of your older videos. I think it's one of your most popular videos where you talk about are there any authentic secular writings, and you interjected
Yes.
and said something,
Mhm.
and you said something like, I want to know if there are any secular writings about Jesus' miracles. And I was wondering if you ever followed up on that, on if there are any secular writings about the miracles of Jesus. You ever followed up on that?
This feels like, just more continuance. It's history with a non-historian. Let me just put that out there. I am not a historian, but I am very interested in this topic. So what I can tell you is that so the big thing that people would point to would be the Josephus passage, the Flavonium, that most people in the Antiquities of the Jews, that most people think is either whole cloth inserted by the Christians or highly embellished. There was some kind of core kernel of a mention, and then it was highly embellished. That definitely called Jesus a miracle. That's the big one, right? The secular one, because it kind of calls Jesus a miracle worker. Now, beyond that one, even most Christians will concede that the Jewish Josephus probably didn't write that. But he did write about a lot of other first century prophets, right? Apocalyptic prophets. And when he described those, like Honi the Circle Drawer and the Egyptian, and I'm trying to think of some of the other names. There's a whole litany of them that were, basically parodied in Life of Brian, for example. He would talk about the fact that people would believe that they worked miracles. And so you can find secular writings. I believe Suetonius. I believe. Why am I blanking on the guy who wrote the comedies, the satires? You can find a lot of references to Lucian. Thank you. So there's those. It's just the standard ones of those that are basically affirming that people believed he was a miracle worker. I've never found a secular source that affirmed that the writer believed that Jesus was a miracle worker. It's just affirming that that's his reputation. So, I guess that was short answer, no. Long answer, no.
I appreciate it. So do you think all of Josephus is a forgery, just the yes or no answer? Because, at first it's like, well, it's only a partial forgery, but the more I look at it, it's like, I think hearing David Fitzgerald speak about it, it's like, I don't think Josephus wrote that paragraph at all. What do you think?
So I agree with you, and I'm willing to entertain the notion that it grew over time, like that there was an insertion and then more insertion and more insertion, maybe. But the evidence for me, and I wouldn't die on this hill, but if you pluck that thing out, if you pluck that whole paragraph out, what Josephus wrote flows very well, and you would never think that it missed a beat, right? It's kind of like part of the same way they discovered that, like, the story of the woman caught in adultery. If you pluck that out of John, the story actually flows better. It's not disrupted anymore. Like John 7 flows into John 9. I think that's roughly where it is. Really well. So I think that's the best argument that that Josephus literally said nothing. But then you have to deal with the fact that at least Josephus does authentically talk about James, the brother of Jesus, right? And the James that we know was part of the church. So you don't get to say that Josephus said nothing about him. I just think that section that you're talking about, the Flavonium, I'm 51% that he didn't say a single word there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's funny how you mentioned you were reading Clement last night. Great minds think alike. I swear to God, I was actually reading Clement last night as well.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, Clement.
Do you think? No. I'm going to ask you this. Do you think that Clement is? Do you think that Clement is saying? So a friend of ours, Chrissy Hansen, has an article that is upcoming for publication, so I can't share too much about it. But it had me reading Clement again. There is an idea out there, because that whole section was about jealousy, right? He was listing off all the people in the Old Testament who are jealous in chapter 4. And then in chapter 5, he's like, and John, the reason why Peter and Paul are dead is because everyone was jealous of them. If you read it in that light, and then it's like, did the Christians kill them? Because the whole point of Clement's passage is all these Old Testament people died because jealous people murdered them, and then he puts Peter and Paul in the same boat. And I'd never read it that way before, and so now I'm in this weird conspiracy. Do you think there's anything to it, having read it last night?
Well, what stood out is that he never mentioned any of Jesus' miracles in his letter. He does.
That is correct. That's correct. Although that's a bit of an argument from silence, though. But yeah.
Oh yeah, I know Richard Carrier thinks that Clement does not place Jesus on earth, and it's like, I'm not. Because we only know like 5 facts from Clement. The gospel was given to the apostles by Jesus himself. The gospel was the main teaching. Jesus' resurrection provided assurance of the truthfulness of his teachings. With Scripture, the apostles spread the gospel, and wherever the gospel was preached, local congregations were started, leaders were chosen to minister to the believers. But none of that tells anything historical about Jesus. Is that what you got from it as well?
I'm with you, and that's why I think it tells us nothing about what any Christians claim to have said. There's no resurrection. You're absolutely like. I care mostly if does it refer to the resurrection, but go ahead. I'm cutting you off.
Oh no, it's okay. And very interestingly, if you read Dr. Richard Carrier's book, he actually dates Clement to the 60s, and he has. Oh. I'm not sure if you read that part in his book or not, but have you read that or no? In his book,
I have, but I read that book. I read about 7 years ago, and I was leaning mythicist at the time. So I actually do need to give it a fresh read now that I've immersed myself on the other side a little more.
Yeah, he did Clement to the 60s. So some Christians might be like, it's the 60s. But it's like, so some Christians might be like, see, it's the 60s. That's more proof. It's like, but like I just said, if you read it, he doesn't really place Jesus.
Oh yeah, no, it affirms nothing other than, I think, the historicity that Peter and Paul were real humans.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. What about?
All right.
I was wondering if you I was wondering if you caught the section on Phlegon. Some people say, "Oh, well, Origin quotes Phlegon as saying, quote, not only Phlegon not only ascribed to Jesus knowledge of." Basically, he's saying, "Oh shit! Oh, sorry. I thought I hung up." Sorry.
No, you're there.
Basically, he's saying Jesus predicted the future and all that stuff came true. And I was like, that doesn't really sound secular. You know what I mean? I mean, we don't know basically a whole lot of about Phlegon.
Well, but Origin wasn't secular.
Oh, of course.
Or you're saying Phlegon was secular.
Well, some people claim that Phlegon was secular.
Okay, you've entered into a little corner that I'm not comfortable giving commentary on, because that particular passage is not ringing a bell to me. So.
Oh, that's okay. What about just?
That's okay. I'm new to all this. I up until a few years ago, just the Bible was good enough. It was in the Bible. That's all you needed to know. The church father stuff. That's for Catholics.
What about? Do you think? And a lot of people think that Justin Martyr is a good source for a secular source for Jesus' miracles. I was like, how can people possibly think that? That's like 120 years later.
That also is a little bit like saying that, that the Pope is a good source for a secular source. It's just, well, Justin Martyr is not a secular source, so yeah.
Exactly. People like Quadrus and Barnabas and all that stuff, Phlegon, they think they're secular sources. But I looked at it, which is getting back to my original question. I was like, well, just those few ones that I mentioned, those are the only ones that they list as secular, right, extra biblical sources for miracles. And I'm like, no, it's not adding up. not credible.
Do you think, based on this conversation, I need to update that video, or is that video still comprehensive enough to cover what we're talking about?
I thought it was just a cool little side note how you said that you would be more interested in the there secular writings about the miracles. And I was like, I wonder if you could ever do a video on that. But yeah, but I just...
Well, I could, because the one you're talking about was literally it was in the first 6 months of my channel existing. So, so perhaps freshers might be good.
One last thing. Justin Martyr wrote something like, "Oh, in the Acts of Pontius Pilate, he recorded Jesus' miracles," and I'm like, "Well, we don't. If Pilate had a report, it doesn't exist anymore."
No, but you know what the Acts of.
So it's like,
but you've seen the Acts of Pilate, right? Like the Acts of Pilate is literally just an anti-Semitic pamphlet. It's literally just, you should hate those people because they killed Jesus.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Some people think, some people might think, Justin's referring to Pilate's actual report, which is no longer around. And I'm like, that's kind of a...
Well, and it could be a Clone Wars situation where he mentioned it and it didn't exist, so people started writing some so that to make it exist, right? Like that's definitely a theory out there too. So, if that book is lost, so I'll plug one in and sell it. And anyway, thank you, Matthew. That was fun history. I think we may have, the audience may well be now waiting for their super chats. So.
That's it. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Matthew. I'm glad I could be here. See you later. Have a good day.
And sorry, I gave a swear word. I thought I accidentally hung up. hung up.
Oh no! Well, you're not the first person to swear on this channel. Yeah.
Right. You have a good one. All right, Matthew. See you later. Bye. I enjoy watching you get excited about your passions. That's fun. It makes me happy watching you be excitedly talking about those things.
We're not doing Game of Thrones or Boys.
You like making me angry, and I like watching you enjoy your passions together.
That makes me sound like I'm not a good person. Yeah, all right.
What? I would never. No, you know that I enjoy a good bit of righteous indignation. Indeed. And you like to share in that joy. All right, $5 from William. Metes? Coffee table monkey. Money. Coffee table money. Wow, this is a dyslexic person's nightmare. I think I got it though. Thank you. Thank you very much. This one does say monkey. From Monkey at Typewriter. Shannon is wonderful with the spice. Her mind is a beautiful cornucopia of knowledge. Oh, thank you. Coffee table
Mm.
Thank
Do you want to
very
alternate
much.
reading these?
Yeah, you do it. Yeah.
Well, I'll read
That's
the
right.
next one.
That's right. You're full-fledged host now. Pull your weight, god damn it.
I'm waiting for the next one to be on the screen.
That's not mine.
It is. Oh no, it is.
No, that's the same one. Maybe we only got 2.
Same one. Oh, maybe we only got 2. All right, well then we're good.
I hope not. Maybe Morgan fell asleep. Maybe he's just trying to see how awkward the two of us will get if we're just sitting here trying desperately to riff. Hey, oh, is it the same person?
Oh,
no,
I
it's
think
different.
I think our producer was looking for the second part of it. Anyway, $5 from Monkey at the Typewriter. Matthew, soul is all of your person. Spirit is part of your soul. So spirit is part of your whole person? We got a whole.
Ma.
There's a lot of cliffhangers from Monkey at the Typewriter.
I want to know more. $10 from Jamnik06. We love you too, Shannon Q. Oh, thanks. Although, did you know that people do hearts different now? You're supposed to do them like this. That's what I learned when you have a teenager. This is now how you're supposed to do hearts. In case anybody's wondering. No. How come mine doesn't do that? What did you do?
Well, because I have all kinds of fancy toys. I got toys. I got things I can do weird things with mine. Hello. I got toys.
So I want to do this thing. Will it work if you do it the way that the kids are supposed to do it?
I don't know.
I don't. I can't do it though without my hands going all like weird. No,
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not dexterous enough for that.
Neither am I, evidently. That was like wild looking. Sorry. Hi. $10 super chat from Jam. It goes, oh, I didn't even read the whole thing. I'm so sorry. I didn't read the whole thing. Can we go back? Because I did a bad job because I got really focused on the heart. I'm really sorry. Here's money to prove it. As far as the extremely important coffee table debate.
I don't know if this is a fault with our super chat technology.
I'm going to scroll up through the chat. I wonder if I can see them.
There's a character limit.
Oh,
there's a character limit. Okay. All right. So we will read the first 100 or so characters
I can see it. I can see it on the thing. Every flat surface in my house has clutter piled on it, except for the coffee table. Can we talk about how when we went to vacation and we got the Airbnb, there was barely ever anything on the coffee table unless it was in use? Except for like the stuff that was supposed to be there, like coasters. We don't want to talk about that. You're not ready for that conversation. That's fine.
We just disagree. $10 from Mostly Gizzards. The light of the world is not Jesus. It is a well-utilized coffee table.
I'm just like you to take note of everybody that's on my side.
That's a different gospel. I'll have to get a copy of that one. Thank you, Mostly Gizzards.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate. From President Starscream. Just want to show some support for the line and this dynamic duo. Thank you. Team Coffee Table. Clutter is an inevitable part of living. I found a way to go find them on the chat, so I can see past the character limit because I'm clever. Thank you. Appreciate it. Tiger up.
$5 from Roy King. Team Coffee Table. Habibi?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, you Habibi. Cool too. I don't know what that is.
It is a different language. It's a way of saying like baby.
Okay. But I appreciate being included. Baby. Thank you, Roy.
think there's another comment. From JamNick06 again. Thank you very much again. Hashtag the line power couples. Hashtag team coffee table. Hashtag aqua colored glasses. Hashtag better quality of Matthew. Better quality of Matthew. That call took so long. Just to like define words differently than everyone on earth uses them. It was wild. Wild, wild, wild. Thank you. Thank you so much. How do you feel about it? The same way I do? You were getting
I was
hangry at the end.
once I found out how long that call was, my heart sank. I'm like, oh no, are there other callers? Like I suddenly felt terrible that we'd spent so much time.
Sometimes it takes a while, and we do what we want.
It did, and it was all. It was a long way to get to that. I'm like, he's just trying to smuggle God in as part of like his definition games, but
of everything. Yeah, God is everything.
All right. $10 from Matt Cracks Wise. And God said, let there be a great surface to divide the couch from the TV credenza. And God called this, I'm going to assume, coffee table or something.
And God called this surface coffee table. And he saw that it was good. And he was correct. It was good. And it was good.
I don't believe in God.
All right. 1999 from Jason in Real People Money too. Thank you, Jason. Thanks for keeping Gio on the call for longer. He was being generous for wanting to go, but there was more to be said, and you both recognized that and kept him talking a little longer. Thank you for being amazing allies. Oh, of course. Anybody who needs to talk, that's part of what we're here for. It's not just about debunking things and having conversations. It's absolutely about building viable communities so that people have the outlets that they need. That's why all of us do this. So yeah, of course, absolutely. No need to thank us, but we appreciate the super chat.
$5 from Monster in Head. Coffee table. It feels like now that people are trying to get around. Maybe does Jimmy have some kind of filter?
Right. You might. I don't think so, though.
Yeah,
that's funny.
that's funny. Well played.
That's funny. $5 from Mr. Anderson. Oh, is that like from the Matrix? Mr. Anderson wasn't that
Mr. Anderson?
Am I wrong?
So that was
Keanu Reeves' name, right?
That was what Neo's in the universe character's name was. And so when Agent Smith would say, Mr. Anderson. You got it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I was right for once in my life. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Great job today, guys. I love your work. You are both amazing at picking apart baloney. Thank you. Preach.
Well, if you don't like baloney, then you pick it.
Pick it apart. Uh-oh. Dog's on the prowl.
Oh, there's a dog.
I see her. It's on tour.
Is this me?
Oui, après vous.
$10 from Nikki D. Team Coffee Table. Sorry, Paul. My books and game controllers are easy to find. I recommend a trial run. Well, we'll take that under advisement.
We should try. I still don't even have my wine credenza, just saying. I will. All right, Jeff Cochran. $5. Thank you very much, Jeff. Best book you've read recently. Looking for stuff to leave out on my coffee table. 1, that's funny. 2, I just finished reading. Oh gosh, what was it called? What was it called? Darn. Why can't I remember? Anxious Generation, I think it's called. Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. I just finished reading that. That was okay. I do have some. It was really, really good, but there's some things about it that I think weren't fully covered. And right now I am reading Dopamine Nation by Dr. Anne Lemke. Yeah, so that's what I'm reading now, which is interesting. She's a therapist who is talking about our societal addiction to sensation seeking, and it's interesting so far. I've still got like a good chunk of it left, but I finished The Anxious Generation. Insightful in a lot of ways, things that I need to read up more on, because I think that there's like some gaps in what he covered. But yeah, those are the two most recent books that I read. What about you, Paul? It's all just going to be like ancient historical.
Well, no,
but like so, esoteric.
Yes,
like,
yes, I was reading. I was reading the Book of Clement last night, so there's that. So I would recommend someone turned me on to a book from John Barton, and it's called A History of the Bible, and it is written from a very dispassionate sense of just how the Bible came to be, from like basically 5,000 BC up until like how modern evangelicals and even our most modern translations, and like the scandals behind the scenes kind of stuff. It's a behind the scenes of the history of the Bible, and it is like, so I knew a lot of the information, not all the information, but it's basically like reading like 15 or 20 different books on the topic at a super accessible level. So John Barton, A History of the Bible, I really recommend to people who are just curious of not what's in the Bible, but all the politics around the stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Yep.
Love hearing about good book recommend. That sounds interesting to me, actually. I might actually read that.
It's on my Audible. You can pick it up.
Ooh, I can hack in. I mean, I have like 1 billion credits right now, too, though. So. Pardon me. From Stomp10, $5. Thank you. What do you two know about Esau and Edom? My mom believes they are the ancestors of Europeans. My answer is I don't know anything.
You mean like, and if you mean like Jacob and Esau, like I know what the Bible says about Esau, but Edom isn't ringing a bell. So unfortunately, I think I'm going to stick to my lane and say not really anything. Sorry.
Neither of us are big Old Testament peeps. So I'm sorry. That's incredibly unhelpful. Your turn. Useful.
$10 from Doobledy Doop. Great name. Also, Paul, your Star Wars references are one of the best parts of the show. Well, I'm glad you think so, because they inevitably come up. They're inevitable like clutter.
I see another one from Doobledy Doop that came before that I'm going to read for $20. So thank you very much. You two are the best. Thanks for more great discussions. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. We appreciate you as well. So thank you. And if that comes up next, I'm going to look like an asshole, but we'll just read it again, I guess.
$5 from Eliashana Silverbow. I hope that's close. A 100-word limit. I can do this. You're both awesome. Love you both. Thanks for the content. I did. Which that actually
that one was legit, but that was funny. That's legit. That's funny.
And frankly, this reminds me of how you always end the show, where you just will keep talking and talking to see where you'll get cut off.
Oh, that's coming.
No,
that's coming. It's tradition at this point. Yep. That is cute. Okay, cool. Next. This is fun. Thanks for sending super chats, guys. 10. Is that what is that? What is that thing? I don't know what that is.
Let's say.
Pounds? Okay. Hello. I'm all loving God. I'm looking for Adam and Eve to forgive them. Did anyone seen that? God is an atheist. From God is an atheist. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Paul and I had a big discussion about like a while ago about the stupid tree and the original sin, and how everything just kind of like dissolves and falls apart when you realize that the whole concept of original sin is dumb, because them attaining knowledge was the original sin. But if they were, the thoughtless automatons who had no knowledge and they literally couldn't have known that they were doing anything wrong. They just couldn't have known. They had no agency to know it based on the paradigm. So yeah, the whole thing is dumb. It's silly. It's silly.
Well, that's interesting. So before, was it impossible for Adam? Was it impossible for them to covet things?
I would have had to.
They couldn't,
right? Because
they literally couldn't have even wanted things. Yeah. Okay.
No. Right? Because it was
Crazy.
it was the knowledge of good and evil. So anything that would be classified as a sin, anything that is bad, they would not have had knowledge that it was or was not. That concept couldn't
But
have
could they, I
existed
guess,
to them.
could they have accidentally done something that was a sin, but not known that it was a sin?
Theoretically, I guess they could have, but they would not have. They literally would have been incapable of knowing that it was. Because that's what the apple, or what is even an apple? It never says that it's
Right.
an apple. We all call it an apple, but it never says it was an apple. The fruit, that's what the fruit imparted to them.
Yeah. All right.
Anyhow,
well, that's
so-
a tangent. We'll save that one for another time. Is this one me? $5 from Monkey at the Typewriter. My other chats got cut off. TLDR. You guys rule. Appreciate. Coffee tables are awful. Matthew 1 needs to study more.
More.
I don't know
Good
what the
show.
rest is.
I could see the end of it. Matthew 1 needs to study more. Good show.
Yep.
Thank you,
Okay.
Monkey at a Typewriter. We resolved the technical difficulties, kind of. Found a workaround. Elsabas? I'm gonna stop trying. 100.
Is it
$10.
like
Thank you
is it
very
like
much.
an electric bass? Elect bass?
Elect base?
100?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. $10. It's been a while to donate, but thanks, Shannon. This one is purely because you are like me, someone who says appreciate without a direct object attached. Joel. Thank you.
Nice.
Preach. Cool.
$10
All right.
from Gappy OG writes, from a secular humanist standpoint, would a first trimester abortion still be okay if it were possible to keep it alive? And there are more to that
alive
one?
is the right word. Yeah.
Okay.
I think all abortions are okay because they're just relinquishing another entity's right to your body. So if it's possible to keep it alive, then it becomes, in my view, it's society who would have the obligation to sustain that life. So if society is invested in sustaining the life and it's possible to do outside of the womb, I think that's a good idea. Like, I think any fetus that's removed that is at the phase of viability, which is actually what happens now. If they're at this stage of viability, like late, one, people just don't have abortions late because they don't feel like being pregnant anymore. At that point in time, they, 99.99999%, if it's a healthy fetus, they have it and put it up for adoption. They've already gone that far. But yeah, if it's viable outside, then have an intervention. But it doesn't mean that the woman or the person should continue to carry it if they no longer wish to. That is my thought. What's your thought, Paul?
I think my dog's going nuts.
Yeah. What else is new?
What else is new? I guess I was staring at the word okay there. Like, depends on what you mean by okay. Like, it's definitely permissible, and it is probably like amoral, right? So those would be better words. And the hypothetical also seems like, I'm assuming that there's a safe way and a reasonable way to transport that fetus to whatever technology you've got going that isn't going to create more bodily autonomy issues, right? Like, because if it creates more bodily autonomy issues, then there's no obligation. If we had, I think it would be interesting, if we ever get to Star Trek transporter, style technologies, and you could just transport the fetus out without killing it, then probably people would opt to do that, right? Like, instead.
Keep it as a transporter pattern.
Yeah, like, I don't know. So we'll see. Thought experiments, but Shannon spoke eloquently on the matter.
Cool.
Yep.
$5 again from JamNick06. Thank you very much. Still team coffee table, but love Paul too. Here's some money for making me laugh with I got Canadian angry and long answer, no. That was funny.
Thank you.
Oh, we missed one from Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels. So I'm going to read it. Idea: replace the entire floor with hardwood. Then you'll have a gigantic coffee table, and clutter can go anywhere now. Well, our floor is already. It's not hardwood; it's laminate. But sounds to me like that's what Paul's doing already, because that's where his fucking coffee goes and his tea on the floor, where I can just kick it over, because that's more practical than putting it on a table that's specifically for coffee. And everything is fine. Everything's fine. It's fine. All right. We're done. We did it. Yay.
We did
go
it.
Us. Go team. And especially go our mods and our call screeners and our super duper excellent, awesome producer, American. And we appreciate all of you. Thank you very much. So much. You guys are everything to the show. Be a patron and watch the other shows. Do all the things. Hit the like and subscribe button. What else do YouTubers say?